Hi, boys and girls. It's time for another story. Our story today is called Water from the Rock. Ooh, I bet that reminds you of a Bible story where Jesus gave water from the rock to the children of Israel. But we're not going to tell that story today. It was sunrise, and the sun was slowly making its way up over that desert landscape. It was early, like 4:30 in the morning. Uncle John had been out starting the farm work. Days started really early there on their ranch. But he was sad. He made his way slowly into the kitchen. Aunt Etta, his wife, was busy making breakfast. Breakfast that early? Well, the reason was they had 35 kids that lived with them. So it took a long time to make food for 35 kids. Plus, they didn't have enough chairs, enough tables, or enough dishes to feed that many kids at once. So every meal had to be done twice. Well, when Uncle John went in, he stood there, and Aunt Etta, she looked at him and something was wrong. And Uncle John said, "It's the well. There's no more water in it. It's dry." "The well dry? What are we going to do?" Uncle John said, "We're going to pray about it. And then I'm going to call into town and see if I can borrow the water truck and I'll haul water until we can figure it out. And maybe this afternoon I can call the well driller and he could come out and look and see if there's anything that he can do to fix it." And then he turned to Aunt Etta and he said, "But that'll leave you to do all the work while I'm gone. Can you handle it?" She said, "I'll get the older kids to help. You go get the water. That's the most important thing." So he did. He left to go get the water tank. He was gone for more than an hour. And when he came back, he poured 500 gallons of water into their water storage tank. That sounds like a lot of water. But in not very long, with 35 children, 2 adults, all the farm animals, and the garden, all those things needed water. That 500 gallons was gone in no time, even when they were being careful with it. Well, Uncle John talked to Aunt Etta again, and he said, "I think the only thing we can do is we're going to have to make trips to town and back several times a day to have enough water to manage this. I'm going to go call the well driller." So he did. He went and he picked up the phone and he dialed that number. And when it rang and the gentleman answered, he told him who it was and where he lived. And he said, "Our well is dry. Could you come out and look at it, please? Maybe there's something we can do." So the man agreed. Uncle John hung up the phone. He said, I'm going to go get another load of water." And within an hour, he was back again. Well, during that time, the children all figured out what the trouble was. There was no water in the well. And looked down in it, but there was no water in there. where they used to be able to stick a bucket, there was no water. And the hand pump didn't work either. There was no water. And they suddenly realized that their whole future depended on whether there was water in the well. Because without any water, they couldn't live here on the farm. Well, Aunt Etta, she had been thinking about this water situation. And she had been praying and praying. And all the kids realized the seriousness of it, and they started praying. And she thought to herself, you know, I can't believe all these years that God has held us in his hands. I can't believe that now he's going to put us down. She remembered when they had moved there. They had bought that old farm with the idea of making a home for children that had no homes of their own, no mommies and daddies to care for them, no place to go. That was their dream. And so they had started with a few kids at a time. Now they had 35 living there. God wouldn't let them down. She was just sure he wouldn't let them down. Well, it wasn't too long till Uncle John came back with another load of water. And you know, the well driller man arrived about that time. And he looked in the well. He put a long, long pipe down in there. There was absolutely no water. There wasn't even any mud in it. So he went to the kitchen to talk to Uncle John and Aunt Etta. And he was trying to figure out how to tell them that there wasn't any water. But Uncle John, he said, "There's no water in it, is there?" And the man slowly shook his head. And all the kids were standing around and their eyes were great big. No water in the well. What were they going to do? Where would they go? After the man had told them that there was no water, he looked at the kids and he said, "I'm sorry, kids. I know you have to have water, and I know why you're here. This is your home. I know what. I'll try to drill another well. If there was water in that one all these years, maybe I can drill another one and there'll be water in that, maybe." So then he turned to Uncle John and he said, "What do you say? Do you want me to try to dig another well?" And Uncle John, he looked at him and he said, "How much will it cost?" He knew that there was no extra money. And a well cost a lot to have a well dug. The man sat there and he thought, and he kind of twirled his foot around. Finally, he said, $10 a foot. That's a lot cheaper than I generally charge. It's the best I can do." Uncle John, he looked at Aunt Etta and he looked back at the well driller and he said, "Yes, we have to try. But you know we'll pay you. But it could take us a long time to get it paid for." And the man looked at him and he smiled and he said, "Don't worry about it. I know you'll pay. I better get out there and get busy." So out the door he went. And he was out there for several hours. They could hear the drill drilling. The well driller was getting discouraged. You know, it takes a special kind of bit to drill a well. They have diamond edges on them that will cut sharply through things. This was the third drill bit he had broke. He kept hitting solid rock. After breaking 3 bits, they weren't cheap. And he knew what he was hitting. Solid rock. He slowly made his way back to the house again. And he told Uncle John, said, I've broken 3 bits. I'm hitting solid rock. I've worked in this area for years. I know that down at a certain level, there's a plateau of solid rock that goes for miles under this area. It's why none of your neighbors have wells. But I thought, since you'd had a well before, and it had plenty of water in it, that maybe I could sink another one. Maybe it wouldn't go as far down as where that rock was. But I keep hitting rock. There's nothing else I can do. Nothing. Uncle John looked at him and he shook his head. No, no. The children, they won't have any place to go. God's not going to let us down. And John's mind was thinking real quickly. He said, we've got to take this to God. We've got to tell him about it. Please, please, would you be willing to come back tomorrow? Leave all your equipment here. Nothing will happen to it. Come back tomorrow morning and try once more. Just once more. Well, by this time, the kids were standing all around, and their little faces were all pleading, and their eyes were pleading with him. What could he do? He said, I know it won't do any good, but because you want me to, I'll come back again tomorrow. So he went home, and after he had left, Uncle John and Aunt Etta, they knelt down, and all the children, all 35 of them, made a circle around him, and they started to pray. They had worship together, and Uncle John explained that they needed to plead with God to help them. The children knew that if there was no water, they wouldn't have a place to live. What were they going to do? But Uncle John and Aunt Etta believed that God could do something about that solid rock. Somehow, he could make water come out of that rock. Somehow. So they prayed, and they prayed. And the children in the circle, they took turns praying into the night. And some of the kids were very little, and they just fell asleep right where they were in that prayer circle. And Aunt Etta, she would go over and pick them up and carry them up the stairs to their little beds. And then she would come down and they would start praying some more. Every time a little one went to sleep, she carried him up the stairs. When the sun was coming up, they had even gone over that deserty land out there again. It was already well over 100 degrees outside, but the children and John and Etta kept praying. At 7 o'clock, they heard the sound of a pickup driving into their yard. It was the well driller. with a helper. He came in and he saw them all down on their knees. He told John and Etta and the children, I'll do the best I can. I promise to try once more, and I'm here to do it. So he went outside. And I don't know if the well driller was a praying man, but I wouldn't be surprised. He went. He had brought fresh new bits with him, and he had measured the pipe. You know, he had long pipes. He would drill down so far, and then he would screw on another pipe. And then the machine would drill down further, and he would screw on another pipe. Well, yesterday, he had pulled that pipe out, and he'd unscrewed all the pipes and laid them out. He started doing that, drilling, adding another pipe, drilling, adding another pipe, drilling, adding another pipe, till finally he was out of pipe. And I mean, the children were all around that well now, and they were watching. Their eyes were huge. And Uncle John and Aunt Etta were standing there. And he said, I must have made a mistake, but I couldn't have made that big of a mistake. So he started pulling all those pipes out. And when he got to the big, long drill bit, he had pulled that up till he got a hold of it. And when he pulled it out, boys and girls, it was covered with mud. Mud. Not rock. Mud. He looked at it, the driller looked at it, and he went, it's mud. It's mud. Where there's mud, there's water. He was so excited, and the tears started running down Etta's face. She was so happy. Oh, God, thank you, thank you. And Uncle John, he put his arm around her, and he put his arm around as many kids as he could, and he started hugging everybody. The well driller said, let me keep drilling. It's not stopped. Let me keep drilling. He went and he got more pipes, and he attached them all together and kept attaching more. And it kept going down further and further and further till he listened. He listened and he heard something. He put on one more pipe, and the driller started drilling it around. And all of a sudden, out of the top of that pipe came gushes of water. Pure, clean, wonderful water. God had provided. He had provided water. The well driller, I think, was excited as everybody else had been, because it took him another 2 days to finish getting the well down to where it was good water. And when the water started gushing out, he started yelling, water, water. And the kids came, and Uncle John came, and Aunt Etta came. And here was this gushing, wonderful water. And Uncle John, they had been kneeling down and praying, thank you, dear Jesus, for the water. Thank you. When they heard the well driller, and in Uncle John's hand was a piece of paper. And Uncle John was crying now. And he said, we prayed and prayed for water, but we never prayed for money to pay for the well to be drilled. But look what came in the mail. a check from a man that we've never even heard of, for the exact amount to pay you. Uncle John, he pulled his pen out of his pocket and he signed the back of the check and he gave it to the well driller. You know, God not only provided the water, he provided the money to pay for it. Several years went by, and now there were 90 children on that farm, each of them happy with their home. They helped with the gardens, they helped in the house, they helped with the animals and enjoyed it. And every child was told the story of the water from the well. And every child, as soon as they came, after they'd been told the story, wanted a drink of that water, the water from the rock that God had provided. Years went by. Many more houses were built on that ranch. And a total of 600 children, as of the time when the story was told, had come and grown up and left that farm, being cared for by Uncle John and Aunt Etta, and now their helpers. And each one of those children left there knowing that God had provided for them. Boys and girls, you need to trust God. He'll provide for you too. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.